Your brother and I said it would be awesome.
I will do whatever it takes to get into this frat.
I'm expected to make some lifelong friends.
Whatever it takes.
In this frat that are gonna make it as hard as possible.
It's under control.
Just a quick warning, this video will contain explicit content. The video will tell some gruesome details about murder victims and crimes committed by a very disturbed individual. This is not a topic that can be treated lightly, and as such, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, lovelies. It's Lady Curious with another true crime. This is another segment of Hazing Through the Decades. This is part 1 of 2010'S. This is really sad, but there was a lot of people, over 50 to 60 people, on just in the 2018 to 2010 era where I had to break it up. But our first video, we talked all about hazing in colleges. Also, I would like to remind y'all this is for educational and documentary purposes only. These stories that I'm reading today are not a deep dive whatsoever, not like my normal videos. This is just me telling about the dangers of hazing and telling you about the very young lives of college students and even military academy students that pass away due to hazing. Hazing is a serious issue. It's ridiculous that like 60 people within each decade passes away, and it's probably even more. But this is the research I did. This is all that I have. Like I promised y'all, I will talk to y'all about William Molina, first person, because he passed away 2019, and he is the reason why I wanted to start this segment. Will Molina was a senior at Sacramento State. He had passed out at an off-campus Pi Kappa Alpha gathering Friday when an unidentified friend fired a pellet gun at his chest. First responders told dispatch the 21-year-old was accidentally shot around 3 a.m. He was a Folsom High grad turned into a Sacramento State business major. He was a member of the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity with members who lived at the house where he was shot during a college party. One of the first recordings from a dispatcher described a first emergency call for help. And I'm going to read you what was said on the phone call. Dispatch. Initially, they responded out for a subject who had passed out. The dispatch descriptions evolved quickly from a person passed out to a shooting. Officer. Be advised the friend on scene shot him with a BB gun accidentally and they've started CPR on scene. Medic. UC Davis. This is Medic 8. We're coming in code 3. With the 21-year-old male was shot in the chest with a pellet gun, went unresponsive, and is in now cardiac arrest. He was shot in the chest with a pellet gun, went unresponsive, and now is in cardiac arrest. Officials could be here saying in the dispatch call. Molina was transported from the house to a local hospital where he died from his injuries. School officials confirmed Pi Kappa Alpha's members' death in the statement, saying grief counseling will be available to all students. I am heartbroken over the loss of this young man, and I know that the Hornet family mourns with Will's family. This is what the state president said of the school. Our hearts go out to Will's friends and family, and we are working with family on arrangements to honor his memory. No arrests have been made, but charges may be filed against the friend who fired the fatal shot. It's a very tragic incident. However, for me to call it an accident, I can't do that. Police officer Linda Matthew told the news. So, that's where it's going to come from the district attorney. Police say that everyone who witnessed the shooting is cooperating, and no arrests have been made. They are now investigating if the person who fired the fatal pellet gunshot will face a criminal charge. It was just getting out of control. Neighbor Linda Faye said the house has had problem parties before, complained to Sacramento State in 2017. We are concerned about the safety because we have seen at the parties the kids would jump off the roof into the swimming pool, Faye said. Sacramento State told her then party house was out of their control. It's a private residence, so our advice was going to have to deal with it through the channels that are available to you. It's nothing that we can really deal with directly. Now, those neighbors' worst fears have came true. Will was set to graduate in May, so he was almost done with college, y'all. His fraternity is planning a memorial to honor him on campus Sunday night. A settlement had been reached between the fraternity and a man who pulled the trigger and family. Pi Kappa Alpha International Fraternity and its Theta Tau chapter agreed to pay $200,000 to William, Melina, and Donna Goals, the parents of William. Officers conducted an initial canvass of the area for witnesses and evidence. Homicide detectives and crime scene investigators were called to the scene to take over the investigation. The family of the man accused of accidentally shooting Melina agreed to pay additional $100,000 to settle the case. To be honest, y'all, I don't think it was an accident. It was boys, very immature boys, fucking around, playing around, and I guess didn't realize that a pellet gun can actually kill someone. It just depends on where you hit somebody. Prosecutors decided not to pursue criminal charges, saying the facts of the case indicated the death was accidental. Deaths caused by pellet gun injuries are rare. Agency reports about 4 deaths per year caused by BB guns or pellet guns, saying air guns that fire pellets at muzzle velocity higher than 350 feet per second can be lethal. So that means he was really close to Will when this happened. His parents filed the lawsuit in 2021, alleging his wrongful death on the part of the fraternity and the man who shot him, Zachary Flores. Flores died July 3rd at the age of 26 from undisclosed causes before the case was settled. Oh no, y'all, that's horrible. Probably ended up unaliving himself or something because he couldn't deal with the guilt. I didn't realize that the person that shot him also died. According to the Melina's parents accused the fraternity and Flores dealing medical care to Melina after he was shot, cursing, causing him to suffer in agony for hours before he expired. It was also accused the fraternity and Flores of trying to cover up the shooting and delayed summoning life-saving emergency responders. Instead of immediately summoning emergency medical assistance, which would have likely have saved the life of Will, defendants and each of them failed and refused to summon such assistance until it was too late, eventually resulting in the death of the descendant. Pi Kappa Alpha did not return messages for comment last week. In their settlement, Pi Kappa Alpha said Melina had been consuming alcohol prior to engaging in horseplay, where he was accidentally shot by Flores. I read somewhere else, y'all, supposedly, allegedly, Melina was drunk and he fell asleep on a lawn chair, and then this dude just went up and shot him in the chest. That's what I heard. So it wasn't they were kiki and haha and messing around and then boom. It was upsets me. Yeah, detectives conducted a 6-month investigation of Melina's death before sending information to the County District Attorney's Office. After the review, the District Attorney's Office informed the Sacramento Police Department that based on the totality of the circumstances, no charges would be filed in this case. The State Hornet was unable to obtain investigative reports from the PD or District Attorney's Office or official date of the District Attorney's decision at the time of publication. At the time of Melina's death, university's officials said that they would not be investigating the fraternity aspect of the incident until police concluded their investigation, saying Greek members living together are not monitored by Sac State unless they violate university rules. In 2017, California Public Records Act request filed by the State Hornet, which detailed all cases of reported Greek life punishments between 2015 and 2017, listed 4 incidents off of campus, unofficial housings being used as chapter housings for official Greek life events. We currently have no reason to believe this incident was a fraternity issue, and we're more concerned with supporting the members of our community which suffered a heartbreaking loss. Beth Leeson, Associate Vice President for Sac State, Student Affairs and Dean of Students, said in April, "Man, F you, dude. F you." Pi Kappa Alpha was on probation at the time of the event. after being removed from campus for violating an earlier probation during an investigation that started in January of 2018. Yo, I've talked about this fraternity like 2 times already. They were reinstated May 31st according to previous reporting by the State Hornet. Pi Kappa Alpha is currently active on campus. So they have not even been sanctioned or any type of, wow, the university is literally saying, oh, well, since it's a fraternity, we can't really do nothing about it. And yeah, you can. You can revoke them for being on your campus. You can revoke them from having a membership for being in your school. I know it's probably called something else, but I can't think of it right now. That happened in 2019. His mother still posts on TikTok a whole bunch about Melina, and it breaks my heart every single time I see the videos. He seemed like a smart and lively young man, and it's terrible that had to happen to him. My love and support go out to his family, especially his mother. The next person I want to talk about is Sam Martinez. This happened November 12th, 2019. It was the Alpha Tau Omega, Washington State University. Martinez, 19, died on November 12th, 2019 after attending Alpha Tau Omega Promised Events Big Small Night. His cause of death, according to the Whitman County Coroner, was acute alcoholism. 15 men were charged in connection with the alcohol poisoning death of a Washington State University student. Prosecutors said on Wednesday, after a year-long police investigation into the fraternity pledging case from 2019, the men were members of the Alpha Tau Omega fraternity. The men, now ages 20 and 23, were each charged with supplying liquor to minors. The charges related to an investigation by the Pullman Police Department into the death of Mr. Martinez, who was 19. Then he pledged to join the fraternity. Mr. Martinez died of alcohol poisoning after he took part in the event. While the charges may lead to some level of accountability, this is not justice. It did not bring us closure. The family said it was deeply disappointing that hazing charges were not filed. The Pullman Police Department allowed the statute of limitations for the charge to expire. That's despite the fact that Pullman police found substantial evidence of hazing that would have supported hazing charges. Police investigation was extensive. We turned over, he said in a statement that Washington State requires any criminal charge of hazing be filed within a year. Since the police investigation took over a year, it did not make the determination regarding hazing. That is fucking sad. I mean, how did that get overlooked, y'all? That was a really fuck up by police. Took over a year because it involved a large number of interviews. Some witnesses had left the area as a result of breaks from school because of challenge accessing a cell phone for evidence. Martinez's family said he and another pledge were ordered to finish half a gallon of rum between them, and his blood alcohol content was measured at 0.372 after his death, nearly 5 times legal limit. Furnishing liquor to minors is a gross misdemeanor that carries a maximum sentence to 1 year in jail and up to a $5,000 fine. The family of Mr. Martinez said those potential penalties were insulting compared to the devastating consequences of their actions, which directly led to Sam's death, and the loss we are living with for the rest of our lives. The defendants will be summoned to appear in court. It was not immediately clear whether they had lawyers. The family did file a wrongful death lawsuit against the university and fraternity. Mr. Martinez's mother said on Thursday that the lawsuit continues to move forward, though part of it is on hold pending the resolution of the criminal charges. Spokesman from Washington State University declined to comment on the charges. In a statement on Thursday about the criminal charges, Alpha Tau Omega said it did not condone hazing or provide alcohol to minors, and that individuals who participate in this type of conduct should be held accountable for violating the law. The fraternity added that members of the chapter at the university were repeatedly educated about ATO's health and safety policies, including the prohibition of hazing and providing alcohol to minors. After the death of Mr. Martinez, the fraternity said its chapter at the university was closed. The members involved were permanently expelled from the fraternity. The charges are the latest in a series of cases involving serious injuries or death of college students at fraternity related around the country. In April, 8 men were indicted in connection with the death of Stone Cold. Y'all, we've already talked about Stone. We did. In that case, prosecutors filed a dozen misdemeanor counts and 1 felony count of criminal hazing and 1 count of failure to seek assistance after a student was dropped off at the hospital with severe alcohol poisoning. So this young man went to the big little where you meet your like fraternity brother or whatever, that they take you underneath their wing and they're kind of in charge of you for the whole process you go through to get into the fraternity. And they were unfortunately told to drink so much, and he did, and he ended up dying from it. And I'm glad that they dissolved that fraternity in that school, and that's what the other school should have did that we just got done talking about. But yeah, some schools just don't have any balls to. It makes me wonder if like the schools get money for the fraternities being able to be on their campus, and it's just sickening. It really is. The next person we're going to talk about is Dylan Hernandez. He passed away on November 10th of 2019, Pi Gamma Delta, San Diego State. He was 19. He attended an event at Pi Gamma Delta House on November 6, 2019, then fell off his bed on the top bunk and hit his head. During the investigation, police uncovered information that alleges the fraternity was involved in possible misconduct. The family has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the college and multiple members of his former fraternity and the bunk bed manufacturer. This is what happened. One day after attending the pledge party at the Pi Gamma Delta fraternity, Hernandez had become sick from alcohol at the event and was later escorted to his dorm room by friends. At some point during the night, Hernandez rolled off the top bunk, hit his head on the way down, and suffered a traumatic brain injury. Hernandez spent the following day on life support and died the following day. The family's lawsuit claims the university staff was aware of hazing and underage drinking Pi Gamma Delta frat house, but did nothing to stop it from happening. In addition, the family's lawsuit claims that fraternity brothers encouraged underage drinking and advised pledges to hide facts of the night from the authorities after Hernandez was hospitalized. Photos included in the lawsuit that were taken during the November 6, 2019 fraternity party, where Hernandez spent the last hours of his life, indicate hazing occurred at the Big Brother Little Brother night. These photos show pledges being struck by wooden paddles and taking shots of alcohol. Other photos show a number of college students passed out drunk on the floors and the bed. They say the administration of the college did investigate the fraternity before hazing and underage drinking. Staff has referred to the fraternity's Big Brother Little Brother night as one of the 3 deadly nights for fraternities and sororities at SDSU. But families say SDSU played another part in their son's death. They allege that while renovating the dorms, SDSU allegedly cut corners in hopes of saving money. In doing so, SDSU purchased what the family claims were unsafe bunk beds from the manufacturer, but the furniture place had knowledge of bunk bed safety issues over the last 2 decades and knew the bunk beds it sold to be used by students and the general public were dangerous, defective, lacked required warning and instructions, and resulted in a series of injuries and deaths over 550,000 individuals. What the fuck? Wow. Representatives of the manufacturer could not be reached for comment on the family's claims. The family also named Pi Gamma Delta fraternity members in the wrongful death suit, alleging they forced Hernandez to consume large amounts of alcohol and sent texts to witnesses and pledges advising them not to talk to authorities after Hernandez was hospitalized. One text attached to the lawsuit ordered pledges to not provide the authorities or school with any information, even asking that someone wipe any evidence from Hernandez's phone. Another text read, "Tell your little brothers if they want to have a fraternity, they better shut up and remember that silence is golden." Ew, that's so fucking gross. The university spokesperson could not comment on allegations in the lawsuit, but said that SDSU has taken steps to prevent hazing and underage drinking. All SDSU student organizations are encouraged to report concerns about health and safety and to also seek timely assistance for appropriate emergency personnel and SDSU staff. Students and student organizations will not be penalized for making reports or seeking support. So that means don't be scared. If you see something, say something. You won't get in trouble for it. Hazing Prevention Task Force to combat hazing has been established at the recommendation of task force members, and members have had their meeting this fall. Students, faculty, and staff and organization community advisors will be appointed to serve as task force members. During the ongoing pandemic, all social fraternities and sororities are required to provide formal acknowledgement of anti-hazing policies. This policy remained in place after public health orders restricting gatherings are lifted. The attorney for the Hernandez family did not respond to a request for comment. I mean, yeah, they can all day go, oh yeah, we're gonna write a policy. We're gonna write a policy. Telling them not to do this, not to do that. They're kids. They're going to do it. It's like that's rebelling together against adults and authorities is exciting, and that's not going to change. Writing policy does not change anything. They need to have physical actions. It's very upsetting. Our next person we're going to talk about is Antonio Coleyes. I'm probably saying his last name wrong, but it's Tsialas. He died October 24th, 2019, Pi Kappa Psi, Cornell University. Antonio, 18, was found dead in Fall Creek on October 26, 2019, 2 days after attending a Christmas-themed frat party at Pi Kappa Psi. An autopsy found that Antonio was drunk at the time of his death and had sustained multiple injuries. An investigation was unable to determine how he arrived at the gorge or the path he took after leaving the fraternity party. Pi Kappa Psi had been banned from hosting events at the time of Antonio's death. In 2020, Cornell University settled a lawsuit with Antonio's parents, which included allegations of hazing. The district attorney declined to pursue any criminal charges relating to Antonio's death. To me, that's despicable. Around 8 p.m., Antonio told his mother he had to get back to campus to work on a project, and he would meet her in the morning. In reality, fraternity brothers had told the invited freshmen that they would be picked up on campus around 8:30 p.m. Carrying a box of cereal that his mother had bought him, Antonio got into a lift and rode away. Cornell forbids fraternities from recruiting freshmen until their second semester. But the rule is broken often enough that it has a name: Dirty Rush. The party that night was called Christmas in October, and it was not the first time Pi Kappa Psi had held the event. Once he arrived at the fraternity house, Antonio was assigned to a group with other freshmen, and they were guided through Christmas-themed room full of alcohol. The fraternity brother told them never to divulge that they were at a party, and he also was careful to stipulate that no one was obliged to drink, but several freshmen later told the police that they were soon pushed to. One freshman who had been determined not to drink too much ended up vomiting into a trash can at the frat house. Few said they remembered seeing Antonio at the party. Those who did say he seemed happy, social, and before long, drunk. At some point, Antonio began looking for Felipe Haunch, the sophomore fraternity brother who played with him on a club soccer team and had invited him to the party. Antonio called Mr. Haunch twice around 10:15 p.m. Conversation lasted for about 2 minutes combined. Mr. Haunch told the police that the next day, Antonio had called him once from a bathroom and asked him to come to the party. According to the police file, Haunch also said he had been at the library until midnight, well after the party ended. But an officer wrote in a file that he believed Mr. Haunch was lying about his whereabouts. Several fraternity members told the police that Mr. Haunch had been stationed outside the house as a sober monitor, one of several people who were supposed to keep an eye on attendees. After his initial interview, Mr. Haunch retained a lawyer and never spoke to the police again. Reached by phone recently, Mr. Haunch said he did not want to talk. Antonio's mom was overwhelmed by the smell of alcohol as she made her way into the Cornell University fraternity house where her missing son had last been seen. It was parents' weekend, and she was supposed to have met him at the campus bookstore that morning, but he never showed up. By 10 p.m., he still wasn't answering his phone. His friends hadn't seen him all day. The night before, fraternity brothers had driven dozens of freshmen to the brick frat house in New York. They did like an alcohol challenge with beers and vodka, and some vomited and some blacked out. Antonio from Miami, who was just a few weeks at college, had played a club soccer team, began taking finance classes, and already found a job as campus tour guide. Another freshman later told the police that a young woman had approached Antonio at the frat party, declared that he was not drunk enough, and poured vodka down his throat. And the president of the fraternity tried to say that, oh, it didn't happen at our party. Antonio must went to a different party after our party. But neither claim turned out to be true, investigators said. While Antonio's mother pleaded with the fraternity brothers for clues that night, in October of 2019, her son was lying in a shallow pool of water at the bottom of a vast ravine nearby. His skull fractured, his ribs broken, and enough alcohol in his blood to indicate that he was drunk when he died. More than a year later, his parents are still trying to understand what happened. The search for answers had been horrible, they say, but fraternity brothers who will not talk, and campus police department unprepared to investigate, and a university that seemed eager to label their son's death as not suspicious. I'm just a mother wanting to know what happened to her son. We don't care about anything else other than knowing what happened to Antonio, so that it does not happen again. In November, more than a year after Antonio died, the chief of Cornell University Police Department announced that he was closing the case. Though few of the central questions surrounding Antonio's death had been resolved, the local prosecutor said he would not be bringing charges against any fraternity brothers. How is that possible, y'all? How did his ribs get broke? How did he have a fractured skull? It's not like he did that to himself. And then he wasn't even found in the house. So that means these guys tried to hide his body and picked him up and threw him into a ravine. What the fuck? What do you mean? Oh, we don't know. We don't know. What the fuck, y'all? I'm so pissed right now. After Antonio's death, Cornell officials found Pi Kappa Psi guilty of hazing, saying the fraternity had made it clear that the recruited freshmen were expected to drink excessively, and the university handed down a range of punishments to 39 students tied to the party, including at least one suspension. The New York Times pieced together this account of Antonio's last night and the investigation into his death by reviewing photographs, emails, text messages, and hundreds of pages of other records, including the campus police report. These documents, along with interviews with more than a dozen people tied to the case, show how members of the fraternity withheld information about the party, making it difficult for police to determine what happened. His death was a nightmarish example of risk posed by the culture of ritual, secrecy, and privilege, pervades many American fraternities, and it came amid a series of troubling fraternity-related deaths across the United States in the fall of 2019. The medical examiner attributed Antonio's death to a fall from height, and it is categorized on his death certificate as an accident. But how he got to the edge of the gorge and plummeted into the bottom remains a mystery. As many as 100 people were at the Pi Kappa Psi house. None said they saw him leave. This gorge is like a 10-minute walk from the fraternity. Between him and the gorge was a waist-high stone wall. Oh my god, you're drunk. How is he getting over that wall, y'all? Between him and the gorge was a waist-high stone wall with the rushing sound of a waterfall on the other side. His white polo shirt was found at the bottom of the ledge he fell from, damp with what appeared to be a shoe print and stained with vomit. Exactly. Someone threw him over. Curiously, he was still wearing a black sweatshirt. His phone was never recovered. I wonder why. They got rid of it. Maybe they didn't kill him. Maybe he did die. But they definitely tried to cover this up. They definitely threw him into that gorge. Allegedly. I have to say allegedly, or I don't want to get in trouble. And also the investigators said that, they had to do all these interviews, and they said that they knew the kids were lying. They weren't telling the truth. It seems to me that all kids who lawyered up just had a complete moral failure. The instinct of covering your own ass at the expense of these parents who are devastated, losing their oldest son and losing a child in that way, so incredibly selfish. Yes, they were covering each other's asses. Antonio left a voicemail message on his mother's phone a few minutes later at 10:29, but it contained nothing more than echoes and background noises. She did not realize he had called until the next day and think it was a pocket dial. Oh, his iPhone most likely died around then, making it impossible for police to track. The garbled recording on his mother's phone is the last documented moment of his life. The morning after the party, Antonio's mom was running late to meet her son, so she sent him a text. "Good morning, baby. Hope your class went well this morning." But when she arrived, he was not in the bookstore. And that's when she found out her eldest son had passed away. And how they found his body was 2 days after the party. They flew a drone over the gorge, and they found his body. It was not an accident or a suicide. I really believe that those kids had something to do with it. And it really sucks that nothing was ever done. Nothing. No one was ever, there was no justice. We don't want to see these kids in jail, Antonio's mother said of the fraternity brothers. "We tell you from the bottom of our heart we don't, but we would like to know more." They just want answers. They just want to know what happened to their kid. I have 3 children myself, and I could not imagine. Our next one is about Sebastian Serafin Bazan, April 17th, 2019, Sigma Pi University at Buffalo. He was 18. He was unresponsive on the lawn of the Sigma Pi house. He was pronounced dead 5 days later. Bazan was forced to perform several push-ups before collapsing. They did not find any drugs or alcohol in his system. He died on Wednesday after falling victim to a suspect hazing incident last week, his school president said in a statement. "I am deeply saddened to share with you that UB freshman Sebastian has passed away today. Our hearts go out to Sebastian's family for the devastating heartbreak they're experiencing." Bazan was hospitalized Friday with a serious medical condition as a result of possible hazing incident. Bazan was at the Sigma Pi fraternity off-campus house when an undisclosed incident that led to the student's injury took place. The fraternity said that they learned of the incident last week. The fraternity says it's deeply saddened by his death and extends its heartfelt condolences to Sebastian's family and friends during this extremely difficult time. We remain in communication with the Buffalo Police Department and university officials. We have offered our support on their ongoing investigation. They said that there was no drugs or alcohol played a role because they found nothing in his system. The nature of the alleged hazing was not immediately clear. They said that he was performing exercises from Thursday night into Friday morning when he began to experience physical distress. The student had been rushed to the hospital with a serious medical condition believed to be a result of the incident of potential hazing. Bazan had been recently treated for a respiratory alignment. So, to be honest, y'all, this does not even, they say that he was doing push-ups and then he died, supposedly, 5 days after. They have no idea what happened to him. There was not drugs, there was no alcohol, no one's talking, and that is just freaking heartbreaking. This kid went to college and was just doing some exercises and died. But they do feel that it is linked to a hazing. They don't know what happened to him. Our next person we're going to be talking about is B. Castro. He died March 17th, 2019. Chi Sigma Pi, California State University. He was plied with dangerous quantities of alcohol, hazed while visibly incapacitated and suffering, was dropped. He was allegedly plied with dangerous, quantities of alcohol, hazed while visibly incapacitating and suffering, was dropped on her head, held up and staged for photographs with a trash bag tied around her neck to catch her vomit. Oh my God. And left in a bedroom on her back, struggling to breathe while CSP members partied on. Castro was found in bed no longer breathing. EMS was not immediately summoned. Instead, friends carried her to their car and drove her to the hospital. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival of acute methanol intoxication with a blood alcohol content of 0.352. It was determined that Castro's blood alcohol level was likely much higher hours earlier when she was alive and her body struggled to process the alcohol. In the early morning, after a long night of excessive alcohol consumption at a mandatory informal new sorority member installation event for Chi Sigma Pi, Castro became incapacitated and unconscious. Throughout the evening, B was allegedly plied with a lot of alcohol. By 8 a.m., B was found in bed, no longer breathing. B rushing the sorority for months, a process that required heavy alcohol consumption. She attended initiation on March 16th, where she was forced to consume large amounts of alcohol on and off campus. She died a day later after being found unresponsible at a private home in Garden Grove. The family is also seeking financial damages from the owner of the home where Castro was found. Less than a week after her death, a candlelight vigil was held for Castro at the Becker Amphitheater. At the vigil, Castro's sorority sister Vivian shared how difficult it was to cope with her death. She was the one who made me whole. There's a part of me missing now. I hope she's doing well up there, and I will see her soon. Another friend said, in my head she's still here. To see her face, to see her name said, rest in peace, and that she's dead is hitting home and it hurts. 14 fraternities in San Diego State was suspended in November after the death of Dylan Hernandez. See, it's like the more and more this happens, the more they're implementing more laws, they're suspending more fraternities. The punishments are getting better, but this shouldn't be happening at all. This is very sad. So that's my first, I think, sorority one. No, it's not my first sorority one. The other one was about a girl driving in a car, but this one was about alcohol and actually dying at a house. Our next person we're going to talk about is Noah Domingo, died January 12th, 2019. Sigma Alpha Epsilon UC Ivern. He was only 18, had a blood alcohol level of approximately 0.331 when he died around 3:30 a.m. The Southern California college freshman was found unresponsive in a home near the University of California. Supposedly, they said that he died of accidental alcohol poisoning, and there was no other substances. There was no other substances in his system. The Ivern Police Department investigating. After his death, UC Ivern placed a fraternity on interim suspension pending the investigation. Fraternity's national organization has since closed the university's chapter indefinitely, according to a statement released by the school. We remain shocked and saddened by Noah's tragic death. We offer our deepest sympathies to the Domingo family for their loss. His death brings an urgent focus on alcohol and substance abuse from the cultural pressures that encourage unhealthy behavior. It's the police designed to mitigate danger. Noah was compelled to guzzle a so-called family drink to become part of his big brother's family. We have discovered the horrifying truth about fraternity hazing. It says that he passed out that night after drinking and his body was found in bed the next morning. He had 4 times the legal limit in his system. That there were 4 fraternity frat brothers that were charged, but they're only charged with a misdemeanor. I wish that they would make these felonies and be considered murder. In a 7-minute 911 recording made after Domingo's body was found, a man's voice can be heard saying their friend just drank too much the night before. The callers described Domingo's skin as blue. When the operator instructed the men how to do CPR, they said his body was cold. Determined that he died 6 hours before his body was discovered, and when the men called 911 at 9:30 a.m. So Domingo was already passed away in bed 6 hours earlier. And these boys only got misdemeanors. That's just so sad. Family, said that he was a really good kid. He was short. He played basketball. He majored in biology. He wanted to be a sports trainer. And it's just really sad that he had so much more life to give and he didn't get to. Very sad. I'm so sorry about y'all's loss. The next person we're going to be talking about is Colin Wyant. He passed away November 12th, 2018, Sigma Pi, Ohio University. Colin was a freshman. He died of asphyxiation due to nitrous oxide ingestion from whipped cream chargers. An alleged part of the hazing practice involved sleep deprivation, physical beating, and the forced ingestion of alcohol and drugs. Colin took the small canister filled with nitrous oxide, inhaled, and within seconds fell backwards onto a futon. His face drained to color, and he began to make noises that alarmed the 3 Sigma Pi fraternity brothers nearby. He soon was gasping for air. He didn't look good. One of the guys was freaking out, so he called the president. He asked him if he should call 911, and they told him to make the call. But for some weird reason, this fraternity brother, Corbin, waited 9 minutes until he made that call. So he died from a whip canister. Colin died at the Athens hospital shortly after 3 a.m. on November 12, 2018. About 2 hours later, his mom was awoken by a knock on the door of her family's home in Dublin. There stood 2 police officers. In that moment, Kathleen knew that one of her children were dead. The Dublin officer told her Colin was gone. I could not even imagine. The family wanted answers. How did this happen? Who was with him when he died? Was it a homicide? The Sigma Pi fraternity brothers declined to talk to dispatch for this story. They said little to Wade and Kathleen, Colin's mom and dad, except to offer respectful condolences for the loss of their son. No one said a word to the parents about the hazing. The men in Sigma Pi only had known Colin for about 3 months. They liked his electric smile, big heart, and generosity. They made him the pledge class president. The narrative that developed was that Colin was drunk the night he died. He must have been high on drugs. He'd been accused of sexual assault and likely wouldn't have been allowed to return to the fraternity. He was to blame for the whole mess. I didn't kill this kid. According one of the fraternity brothers said, none of the people in my house killed this kid, and I am mad at the school. Colin is a big boy, and he made multiple bad decisions. The coroner's report would show that Colin was drunk that night. He didn't have drugs in his system except a small trace of marijuana, and the police never charged him with sexual assault. That is so sad, y'all. Colin's younger brother was spiraling. He blamed himself for Colin's death, blamed himself for not sharing Colin's hazing secrets with his parents. When he finally told them what he knew months after Colin's death, they embraced their youngest son and could feel the guilt start to fade. Now it was time to honor the son they couldn't bring back by doing whatever they could to combat hazing. And that's really sad. So he was at a party. He got hazed, drinking, drugs, got out of control. And who would know? Who knew? Who knew? You know, everyone sprays whipped cream in their face all the time. That's scary. Maybe he was huffing it? I don't know. Our next person is Tyler Hillard. He passed away September 16, 2018, from Alpha Phi Alpha, University of California. He collapsed during hazing rituals, according to interviews with other pledges, took place over the course of 5 weeks. His family filed a lawsuit against the University of California in 2023. Tyler died while pledging to Alpha Phi Alpha, a well-known black fraternity whose members include Martin Luther King Jr. and Thurgood Marshall. Although Hillard's family isn't certain hazing caused the student's death, they believe his death was not from natural causes. I'm not saying that his death was a direct result of hazing. I don't know that for sure. Hillard's mother told the Times today. But I believe something happened that led up to his death. The incident occurred around 9 p.m. on Saturday when the fraternity organized a run on the hiking trail. Hillard complained he was feeling short of breath and then collapsed, prompting the fraternity's pledge master to call 911. Riverside police officer said detectives are investigating whether hazing played a role in Hillard's death or was it labeled as suspicious. Although Hillard's body did not show any obvious signs of trauma, police are still waiting for autopsy report that could help them determine if his death was caused by a medical issue, hazing, or something. It's just not the easy. There's a lot of unknowns about this. Hillard's family said after his collapse, he later discovered text messages on his phone referring to this trip as Gold Paddle Day. His mom said she found texts that revealed her son had been forced to eat an entire onion covered in hot sauce, forced to drink large amounts of water, and was paddled with a piece of cactus during his pledging process. She said she took Hillard to the emergency room several weeks ago after he complained of chest pain, which likely occurred after he ate the onion. At that time, Hillard was prescribed medication for heartburn, and tests at the hospital did not turn up anything unusual. Historically, there is an aspect of secrecy in fraternities. We would hope that would go out the door if something had bad happened to a member. We would hope whoever is involved would come forward. The UC Riverside chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha cannot be reached for comment. The National Fraternity Organization said Tuesday that it has launched an investigation in partnership with the university and placed a chapter on an immediate cease and desist status, which suspends all of its activities. Alpha Phi Alpha, which has chapters across the country, states its emphasis the importance of hazing prevention. Eyewitness News also reached out to Riverside Police Department. We're waiting to learn more about the results of its investigation into the Hillard's death. A trial date has been set for January 2024. Mostly what we want to see come out of this is we want to see stronger anti-hazing laws and protocols in place so it doesn't happen to another student. That is so sad, y'all. That's so sad. That is so sad. It's like, how many more people need to die? Okay, Andrew Coffey. He passed away November 3rd, 2017, Pi Kappa Phi, Florida State University. He was 20 years old, was discovered unresponsive Friday, November 3rd, after a house party occurred the previous night. It was determined that Coffey died of alcohol poisoning after drinking an entire bottle of bourbon. The coroner estimates that his blood alcohol level was 0.558 at the time of death. When a fellow fraternity pledge discovered Andrew Coffey had no pulse the morning after an alcohol-filled party, he didn't immediately call 911. Instead, he called the pledge. Pledge called and texted 5 other members of the fraternity first, causing an 11-minute delay in summoning help. Those 11 minutes would not have saved Coffey's life, but the delay was broadly representative of the culture of the fraternity. The brothers' pledges and officers were more concerned about getting in trouble than were about trying to save Coffey's life. A major of the fraternity brothers refused to speak to investigators, and those who did speak provided testimony that sounded rehearsed. The lack of accountability was illustrated by the lack of substance in their testimony. Their demeanor while testifying and the overall glib attitude of Andrew Coffey's so-called brothers towards this very serious matter. They said that he was unconscious on a couch. A number of fraternity members continued drinking, partying, playing pool around him, oblivious to his impending death. A letter from Coffey's mother included in the presentation said that Coffey died alone in a room full of people. Pi Kappa Phi Creed uses words like loyalty, responsibility, standards, conduct. Coffey's mother, Sandy, wrote, easy words to put down on paper, obviously more difficult to live by. The national organization of the Pi Kappa Phi released a statement that was saddened by the details of the grand jury presentment about the tragic death. Since originally learning of Andrew's death, Pi Kappa Phi had continued to direct the students at Florida State to cooperate with all investigation efforts. Coffey was a junior who had transferred to FSU and was studying civil engineering. He planned to enlist in the Navy after graduation, according to his mother. I can't get a job where I sit behind a desk all day. It will drive me crazy, he said, according to a letter from his mother. I want to get out and see the world. After his death, FSU Thrasher indefinitely suspended Greek life. I want to send a message that we've got a serious problem and we need to deal with it. And they're part of the solution, Thrasher said. And the sooner they can come to the table and we can talk and find those solutions, the sooner this will be lifted. Now, this is supposedly what happened on his last night. He was doing the big brother, little brother night. The pledges hired 2 strippers, attended the party off campus home. The fraternity was under a liquor ban, meaning only beer or wine was allowed, but the pledges were told that ban was expressly lifted for Big Brother night. Coffey was handed a bottle of Wild Turkey 101 proof bourbon. Coffey drank enough that he passed out and had to be carried to a couch. At least a dozen other pledges vomited due to alcohol consumption. While pledges were not physically forced to drink, it is clear that the environment created by the leaders led to an expectation of abuse drinking or face possible ostracism. As other fraternity brothers and pledges continued drinking and partying and playing pool around him, Coffey remained unconscious. His brother went home, according to the court docs, and the next morning another pledge found Coffey on the couch and discovered he had no pulse and eventually called 911 for help. Law enforcement interviewed 22 pledges, while 19 refused to speak. Of the full fraternity members, 16 were interviewed and 22 refused to speak to investigators. One of the 9 members of the fraternity's leadership council, 7 refused to speak. Those who did talk to investigators weren't that helpful. Many witnesses' testimonies appeared rehearsed as if they were speaking off a script. They presented many of the same answers as each other and volunteered much self-serving information without being asked. Grand jury recommended that the members face criminal charges. The president also advised FSU to make recuperating investigations a condition of enrollment at the university and questioned whether Greek life belongs on college campuses. While fraternities and sororities bring countless benefits to participants in the community as a whole through lifelong friendship and character building, Andrew Coffey's death should make us question whether these benefits are outweighed by the danger of an organization whose culture celebrates drinking to excess, the grand jury said. Peer pressured into drinking, and he didn't want to be called a wussy, it's peer pressure. And then he passed out. And then they put him on the couch, and they left him there, and he ended up dying. Our next person we're going to talk about is Maxwell Groover. He passed away September 14th, 2017. Pi Delta Theta, Louisiana State University. He was only 18 years old. He was from Roswell, Georgia. He was taken to the hospital after an alleged drinking game hazing ritual known as a Bible study. He was pronounced dead the same day. The cause of death was stated to be from acute alcohol poisoning. He had a blood alcohol level of 0.495, equivalent to consuming 24 standard shots. On the last night of his life, Maxwell was pelted with hot sauce and mustard in order to recite the Greek alphabet as part of his initiation into the Phi Delta Theta fraternity, and forced to chug hard liquor if he messed up. And when 18-year-old freshman died later at the Baton Rouge Hospital, he had a blood alcohol level of 4.95, more than 6 times the legal intoxication level in most states. Those grim details about Maxwell's death were laid out in the warrants released Wednesday as 10 current and former LSU students were formally charged with hazing, and one of them, Matthew Alexander Naquin, 19, was charged with negligent homicide. One of the pledges stated he could hear Maxwell messing up the Greek alphabet and Naquil telling him to drink. The arrest came almost a month after the incident. Maxwell and the other pledges had gotten a group text on September 13 saying Bible study would take place that evening at a chapter house, where they would be grilled about the fraternity and forced to do wall sits and planks and take slugs off diesel if they gave the wrong answer. According to the arrest warrants, and are relieved that Maxwell died of acute alcohol poisoning instead. This is a very serious matter involving allegations of dangerous behavior and gross disregard for health and safety of a fellow student. Police identified the other suspects. The suspects face a maximum of 30 days in jail, expulsion from LSU. Maxwell's father declined to comment on the arrest after NBC News reached him at the suburban Atlanta home. In a statement, Phi Delta Theta said the accused students have been kicked out of the fraternity. Actions such as those described in the charges filed today are completely inconsistent with the values of Phi Delta Theta and in full violation of our establishment and communicated risk management policies. It said, after completing our initial investigation into the events around September 13th and reviewing the charges brought today by local police, Phi Delta Theta has formally removed the membership of those charged in this incident. This action effectively severs ties with those alleged to be involved. Maxwell's family will mourn his loss for the rest of their lives, and several other students are now facing serious consequences, all due to a series of poor decisions. Although Phi Delta Theta claims to have a blanket hand-tie hazing policy, NBC News reported that dozens of chapters have been disciplined for breaking that and other rules since 2000. Other chapters have also stirred up controversy with sexually or racially insensitive stunts. This next one is Tim Paiza. February 4th, 2017 is when he passed away. Beta Theta Pi, Pennsylvania State University. He was only 19 years old, died 2 days after falling down the stairs while intoxicated. He suffered a collapsed lung, ruptured spleen, a non-recoverable brain injury following the fall. Paramedics were not summoned for nearly 12 hours. Tim is estimated to have had a BAC of nearly .40 on the night of the fall. 18 members of the fraternity were charged in connection with the death. 8 were charged with involuntary manslaughter, and the rest with other offenses, including hazing, death of Penn State University. Fraternity Tim will be the subject of upcoming limited series currently in development at Hulu. So I'm guessing they're going to be doing a movie or show about him. The story explores fraternity culture and details 12 hours Tim was left to fight for his life after a fall at Beta Theta Pi's house on the University Park campus before his fraternity brothers contacted 911. On the night of February 2nd, Beta Theta Pi's fraternity pledges each took a turn participating in the Gauntlet, a drinking ritual that involves consuming an entire bottle of vodka, a beer, and a bag of wine. Tim was one of the first pledges to take part and was vividly intoxicated about an hour later. By 11 p.m. that night, Tim fell down a flight of stairs at the fraternity and was carried by fraternity brothers to a couch. Rather than contacting emergency services for Tim, the brothers slapped and punched him, threw his shoes at him, poured beer on him, and sat on his twitching legs. What fucking disgraces. At around 3:49 a.m. the next day, Tim woke up and struggled to stand up. An hour later, he managed to stand up, then fell again, this time headfirst into an iron railing, then onto the floor. Tim was seen several times in the house throughout that morning, but the fraternity brothers declined to call 911 until just before 11 a.m. After much of the evidence was cleaned up, it was too late. Tim was pronounced dead early February 4th, 2017. The coroner said that Tim would have experienced severe and unremitting pain from his injuries sustained through the night, which included a fracture at the base of his skull and a ruptured spleen. An autopsy report concluded that Tim's blood alcohol level was at least 4 times the legal limit, and his death was caused by multiple traumatic injuries. Tim's death resulted in one of the largest hazing indictments in the United States history, as the fraternity and 18 of its members were indicted on involuntary manslaughter charges related to his death in May of 2017. Good. In 2018, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf signed the Timothy Piazzi anti-hazing law into effect, which requires stricter penalties for hazing and permits courts' confiscation of frat houses where hazing has occurred. Last year, when he signed this, it required public schools and higher education institutions to implement anti-hazing policies. Through the Piazzas are pleased by the news of the limited series. They had no additional or financial interest in the project. There's still a long road ahead of us. Tim's father said one of the boys received 6 months in jail and 3 years of probation. Another one, 10 months of house arrest plus 2 years of probation. One of the other guys received 3 to 9 months in jail and 1 year of probation. Another one, 6 months in jail plus 1 year of probation. They were all ordered to pay fines, reform community service. See, I feel that if you cause someone else's death because of your dumb actions, you should be definitely put away for killing someone. It shouldn't just be, oh yeah, a little slap on the wrist, and I just hope that in the future it gets more strict. They said that he fell down a flight of stairs into the basement, and the brothers carried him back upstairs and placed him on the couch, where they poured water on his face and slapped him in an attempt to wake him up. Yeah, they didn't know he was dying. Y'all have to be careful with this kind of crap. Y'all have to. Tim tried to stand on his own but fell down each time until he eventually stopped moving. Then, 12 hours after the initial fall is when the fraternity brothers called 911. In March 2017, the Beta Theta Pi fraternity was permanently banned from Penn State. The university says its investigation of the fraternity revealed disturbing facts, including a persistent pattern of serious alcohol abuse, hazing, as well as illicit drug use and sales. After their son died, Jim and Evelyn Piazza helped form an anti-hazing coalition with other families who have experienced a similar loss. The National Coalition, which includes organizations that represent dozens of fraternities and sororities, is fighting for a new legislation to increase criminal penalties. Yeah. There's still a lot that needs to occur in regards to Tim's killing. Jim told ABC News. There's a lot to be seen. This is a lot of information I'm throwing at y'all. I know, I'm sorry, but I would like to try to remember these people's memories. Next person is Ryan Abel. He passed away October 27th, 2016. Sigma Nu, University of Nevada, Reno. Ryan suffered a fatal head injury while intoxicated with alcohol of a BAC of 0.40. On October 16th, 2016, he was 18, a freshman pledge, when he woken up to the rest of the pledge class at 5:45 a.m. following a party. Abel was ordered to get the fuck downstairs, where he slipped and fell, rupturing the main artery to his brain. Upon arrival at the hospital at 7 a.m., his BAC was found to be .30. Ryan died the following week. University of Nevada, Reno freshman Ryan died only at 18 in an intensive care unit 12 days after falling on a staircase leading to the basement Sigma Nu fraternity house. According to family and friends, he had immediate surgery after October 16th incident to stop bleeding when a main artery in his brain ruptured. Friends and family, including many students from UNR, spent last week gathered at the hospital. Ryan was a 2016 high school graduate. He played baseball for the High Catholic Boys School in Concord, California. 2 public prayer services for 2016 high school graduate drew hundreds. Friends and family talked about the remarkable young man who was eager to attend UNR. He was always there for everyone. His older brother Matt said he was thankful for all the love and support from friends and family, and thanks to the hospital for being the amazing staff. His family said he remained on life support after doctors said he would not recover. His family said that Ryan's organs were donated. Ryan had a bright future. In high school in Concord, he was a baseball player and had a 3.94 GPA. In 2016, he enrolled in the University of Nevada, Reno, where he planned to major in broadcast journalism and was excited about joining a fraternity. It was something that he was looking forward to. It was something that he was encouraged. It's a big, beautiful house, throw big parties, and we can go drink some beer and meet some girls and see the appeal, said Jack. The University of Nevada, Reno suspended Sigma Nu for 15 years after an investigation by its Office of Student Conduct found the frat violated its alcohol policy with underage drinking. Fraternity also allegedly broke student conduct rules by having marijuana and topless dancers at a pledge, even the night before Ryan's injury. It's surreal because it could have been anyone, his dad said, but at the same time, it should have been no one. Fraternities and sororities are an increasingly controversial part of the college experience at many American universities. On Monday, Cornell University suspended all parties and social events hosted by fraternities after campus police said one student reported a sexual assault and another 4 reported their drinks were allegedly drugged. Still, some parents urged their children to go to Greek, saying that the system is a jovial breeding ground for lifelong friendships and influential career network. Others hope their children avoid it because of the increased risk of alcohol abuse and sexual assault. It's time to abolish college fraternities. The report blamed the uptick in sexual violence on the culture of frats. Why do we still tolerate these places? On Thursday, Cornell University English teacher Daniel R. Schwartz published an opinion piece in an Inside Higher Education called for the end of fraternity and sorority system, and noting it encourages excessive drinking, abusive bullying under the guise of hazing, groupthink, and sexism. But some parents were outraged by efforts to tame Greek life. In January, Northwestern University in Evanston suspended its chapter of Sigma Chi until the fall of 2024 following reports of alleged drugging at 2 events at its on-college fraternity house. It was just done poorly. When push comes to shove, they can blame the frats and the kids in it. But by saying no more parties, that's not going to solve the problem. They'll go and have them somewhere else, which isn't a good thing either. Fraternities are a problem. I'm serious. Abel's parents filed a negligence lawsuit in spring of 2017 against the Delta chapter of Sigma Nu and Sigma Nu House Authority, the registered owner of the frat house, and several then members of the fraternity and former advisor to the chapter. They reached a confidential settlement in March of 2019. You have to look at what's taking place, he said. I think you should suspend the frats that are drugging girls, investigate them. But I don't think you should suspend every social event ever. It's like over and over. It's the same pattern. It's the same thing over and over again. So why is it still going on? Like, why can't they get a handle on this? It's like the colleges and the authority and everything just want to turn a blind eye. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about is actually United States Marine Corps. It was something that a recruit went through. His name is Raheel Sadiq. He died March 18th, 2016 at Paris Island. He was a 20-year-old, died after falling from a 40-foot-high stairwell landing while running from Gunnery Sergeant Joseph Felix, a drill instructor who had previously hazed him by ordering him into an industrial clothes dryer several times, causing burns. Allegations also served that Felix had harassed Raheel, who was a Muslim with Pakistani ancestry, on the basis of the religion, who called him a terrorist. The drill instructor Felix was charged in court-martial proceedings on a variety of charges, including cruelty and maltreatment. He received a 10-year sentence for maltreatment, violation of lawful general order, and direction of duty, making a false official statement, and drunk and disorderly conduct. Now, this is about Raheel. He was born and raised about 20 miles southwest of Detroit. There are 3 military recruiting stations in the area. They targeted kids that were more college-oriented and capable of being successful. Raheel took the ASVAB and scored high. With his talents, drive, and rigid focus, he would very likely have struck recruiters as the golden goose, as one former Marine put it. The military never really interested Raheel. College was his goal. He polled his friends on Facebook. Where should he go for the most challenging engineering program? Michigan Tech, Michigan State, the University of Toledo. Raheel often crowdsourced big decisions. It wasn't enough for him to choose. He had to make the best choice, says his classmate and friend Gabriel. He recalls that for a long time, a squeaky anxiety would creep into Raheel's voice. Failure seemed to terrify him. He'd stress over the little things to make it perfect. Raheel applied to University of Michigan, and in April 2014, he was accepted and given a $2,000 scholarship. It was not the full academic scholarship he was offered by the state, but with the hefty financial aid he would receive, it was technically a full ride. Raheel enrolled in Michigan's honor program, a special track requiring students to maintain a 3.2 GPA average. He assumed it would be easy. Lee, his boss at Home Depot, estimated that Raheel probably worked about 20 hours a week his freshman year, though it never occurred to her to ask why he needed to work so many hours if school was paid for. He never talked about what he did with the money. I assumed he was doing well at school because, he was a genius. After high school, Raheel told his mother she should stop working odd jobs and let him contribute to the family income. Supposedly, Raheel was having trouble in college, and he was really stuck on trying to make a 4.0 GPA. And his friend told him, look, you need to stop being so stressed over this. So Raheel decided that he was going to withdraw from his classes and start fresh in the spring, which he did, finishing the semester with 3 A's and a B. And unfortunately, that would mean that Raheel would owe the University of Michigan the money it had given him to attend classes in the fall that he did not complete. It also could have jeopardized his aid package for the following year. Raheel raised in public housing and spent his high school years intent on escaping his shabby hometown. He always wanted challenges. Raheel had virtually no social life, though he had a naive optimism unusual for a teenager. He saw the world as nothing but a wonderful place. Raheel's supervisor at a nearby Home Depot, where he worked part-time at the customer service desk, I don't think he knew the hatefulness existed, to be honest. It was a late night on March 7th of 2016 when his mom heard the phone ring and hurriedly reached for it, eager to hear the voice of her son. An indecipherable torrent of words spewed from the breathless caller. "This is recruit Sadiq. I have arrived safely at Paris Island. Please do not send any food or bulky items to me in the mail. I will contact you in 7 to 9 days by letter with a new address. Thank you for your support. Goodbye for now." And then silence. "Raheel," she said. The phone was dead. The call lasted less than 5 seconds. She felt that it was really strange, with an almost deafening noise in the background. No one knows my son's voice better than me. That didn't sound like my son. But Raheel, after his freshman year of college, drastically changed course, announcing to his family he had decided to leave college and enlist in the Marines. His mom didn't understand. "You're smart, you're intelligent. Why?" She pleaded with him. Raheel tried to placate her. "It was a golden opportunity," he told his parents. "After 3 years in the Marine Corps, I can do anything." Over the next 8 months, Raheel prepared for the rigorous boot camp, installing pull-up bar in the basement, drinking protein shakes, lifting weights, learning to swim. He told his parents he would still try to follow Muslim dietary laws and stay away from anything haram. "It's going to be good, Mom," he told her, before saying goodbye on March 6th. "Don't worry, I'm ready." That was the last time she heard her son's voice. On June 16, 2015, Raheel posted on Facebook for the first time in a while, "I'm thinking about joining the military, maybe the Marines." Just 3 weeks later, on July 8th, he signed his enlisted papers and entered the Marines, the delayed entry program, which lasted anywhere between a month and a year. Raheel spent close to 8 months in the DEP under the recruiter. The recruiter said that Raheel was the most motivated Coley. His mom marveled at the changes in her son, who now woke up each day at 4 a.m. to spend hours at the gym, and he doubts his mother had about his education were assured by Raheel's own assurances. He said he had been told that he could continue his education while serving, and not having chosen a technical specialty working on the Marine aircraft, he might not even have to fight unless he wanted to. Feel like they're really good at lying, the recruiters. "Be careful," Raheel's friend, Hussein, who worked with him at Home Depot, says he told him before he left, "Just watch yourself. You don't know what kinds of people are down there. You don't know how other people think." Talking about, everyone in the Marines. Raheel debarked from the bus at night on March 7th, 2016. It was late. He was tired, unsure what came next. He moved on to yellow footprints through the silver hatches into the chaos of sleep deprivation that would define his first 96 hours on Paris Island. 4 days later, a day traditionally known as Black Friday, even though in the case it was a Saturday, Raheel was assigned to Platoon 3042, arriving with the 60 or so other newly shorn and outfitted recruits at Kilo Company's 3-story red brick barracks. His squad bay and cavernous room with beige green walls and floors shiny from excessive scrubbing was on the top floor. Drill Sergeant Felix stepped forward and said, "I am your senior drill instructor." He promised to treat them with firmness, fairness, dignity, and compassion, and informed them that abuse would not be tolerated. The new recruits were ordered to perform hundreds of burpees. They were told to dangle their rifles off the ends of their pinkies. They were dogpiled into a corner and then ordered to run back and forth over and over again. One of Raheel's platoon mates, who shared his detailed recollections of the condition of anonymity, thought he was going to pass out. "And I was in pretty good shape," he said. "I remember one kid had a panic attack and started throwing up, and I think he peed himself too." Yikes. On the morning of March 13th, less than 24 hours after being picked up by his platoon, Raheel announced to his drill instructors that he'd rather die than continue training. He would jump out the squad bay window if he had to. When a recruit threatened suicide, everything stops. First, the drill instructors tried to reason with Raheel. What would his mother think? Were he to come home without him becoming a Marine? "I tell my mother goodbye and kill myself," he said. The future does matter. The Marines took Raheel's belt and bootlaces to prevent him from strangling himself. Suicide threats are common during early weeks of boot camp, though how many are serious is unclear. Everyone knows saying you're suicidal is a ticket off Paris Island. Sickness or broken bones, on the other hand, will get a recruit a long stint in medical, after which they will simply be assigned to another company and start training all over again. Base officials determined Raheel didn't qualify for emergency transport to the hospital. Instead, he was cross-decked. They moved him, still without laces or a belt, to another platoon squad bay. Over the next 24 hours, he sat there cross-legged on a mattress in the middle of the room while a shadow watch of recruits shined a flashlight on his face and took turns monitoring him around the clock. At some point during this period, Raheel, who had to request permission to leave the mattress to use the bathroom, recanted his suicide threat and said he decided he wanted to be a Marine. They deemed him as a low-risk harm, and Raheel went back to training. Marine training is very strenuous, and they really do abuse the people that go in there. It says, that they were tortured. It seemed like for 4 days, and it would be called bitches, agates, maggots, little bitches, pussies, and retards. A Russian-born recruit was called the Russian or the cosmonaut and was asked if he was a Russian spy. Raheel was called a terrorist. Felix asked one on occasion if he needed his turban. Raheel's platoon mate didn't understand why Raheel had joined the Marines. Orders seemed to confound him. Rather than simply following them, he thought about what he was asked, like a normal person. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's not how they wanted it. It wasn't the Marine way of doing things. Once the platoon mate recalls Felix stuffed a recruit in a footlocker. Another time he made a recruit eat nothing but jello and mashed potatoes for a few days, and then threatened that if he didn't improve, he'd have to stuff him in a locker too. Choking recruits until they were gasping for air was common. Some of the drill instructors suspected were almost as terrified as their senior drill instructor as the recruits were. One drill instructor, he recalled, became so ill that he projectile vomited all over the squad bay while yelling at recruits after he himself had been screamed at by Felix moments before. We never knew if it was blood or Gatorade, but he's vomiting his red stuff while screaming, and we're like, what is going on? They said that, they would be punched repeatedly in unprotected parts of their body, including their jaws. One sustained 2 broken ribs. Just a lot of abuse. Around 2 a.m. on March 18th, Raheel woke up his bunkmate. He was in pain, he said. We're all in pain, another recruit told him. 2 hours later, the recruit awoke and prepared to sound off before leaving for chow. Raheel pointed to his throat and silently mouthed the words. When 2 DIs started yelling at him, Raheel handed one of them a note. This recruit has to go to medical. This recruit's throat has been swollen for 3 days and is getting worse, it said. The recruit also coughed blood a few times last night. This recruit completely lost his voice and can barely whisper. The recruit's whole neck is in a lot of pain. A DI told Raheel they would deal with the matter after breakfast. He sat silently through the meal, zombie-like. Upon returning to the barracks, the platoon set about cleaning, and Raheel was called to the front of the squad bay. He was supposed to fill out a form so he could go to the medical unit. He stood before Felix but failed to greet him properly. Perhaps because he couldn't speak. His silence seemed to enrage the senior drill instructor. Get back, he shouted. Raheel ran 144 feet across the squad bay from one end of the room. Go back, run. Suddenly, Raheel grabbed his throat, crying, and fell to the floor. Some recruits thought he was faking. I don't know if he did it willingly. I don't know if he was just exhausted, but he dropped. Get up, Felix shouted. I know you're faking. Get up. At this point, reports differ. Raheel appeared to be unconscious. A DI claimed to rub his knuckles across Raheel's sternum to revive him. Other recruits and drill instructors say that never happened. The platoon mate recalls seeing Raheel on the floor, clutching his throat, leaning over, Felix slapping him across the face. 5 feet away, Raheel's platoon mate thought at first the DI was acting like an emergency responder trying to revive him, but then he slapped him again, so hard that the sound echoed across the squad bay. And Raheel gets up. He starts dead sprinting, which I thought was a logical thing to do. This is boot camp. He's running away, his platoon mate says. But he was running Too fast. He is literally sprinting the fastest I'd ever seen anyone sprint. Slowly it dawned on him what Raheel was about to do. We were all still cleaning, kind of dispersed around the squad bay. The doors, he recalls, were open, and he straight up jumped. He was alive when he landed, his body bouncing off the steel handrails onto the concrete steps. A Marine passing by phoned 911. The other DIs herded the platoon into the bathroom and instructed recruits to face the wall. They heard the ambulance show up and depart. Then were herded to physical training as if it were another morning and told not to talk about what they'd seen. They tried to put the blame on him, the platoon mate says. We were trying to train him, and he took it wrong, but I mean, what the hell are we doing here? I just watched a kid kill himself. I'm not here for that. We were all traumatized. A week after Raheel died, his body was sent back to his parents in Michigan. At the funeral home, the family stared down in horror at their son. His arms, chest, stomach, and legs were purple. There were ligature marks, not unlike the ridges of a webbed military belt, around his neck, which had been mentioned in the autopsy report. They strangled him? See, there's so many stories, y'all, that are like this about people getting murdered by the government, like the military. People in the military, and then the military covering up for the people that murdered the other person. Blows my damn mind. And you know what? Because of the military, they don't get any type of justice. Like 10 years for murdering a boy? Yeah, no. And this is disgusting. There was an interview with Raheel's mom, and she, showed the interviewer a picture of Raheel, and she said, "Why would they do this to my son?" Distraught, pushing over a photograph of Raheel's neck. Taking me upstairs, she led me into his room, which was spotless, almost like a shrine. And they just really didn't feel like he jumped by himself because they never imagined him being depressed. The dress blue uniform would have been worn upon graduating boot camp hung in his closet, neatly pressed. The Marines had dressed Raheel's body in it. He was brainwashed, his mom said, wiping away a tear. He's smart, intelligent, beautiful, excellent boy. Perfect. I am so proud of my son. Now, this is what, the person that is in control of the training for the Marine Corps said. And this really just pissed me off. He said, tragedies happen, but a vast majority of recruits, he says, make it through boot camp just fine. We want them to all transform. If they show up with a little want to in their hearts, they'll make it. I have no plans to change the fundamentals of training. I believe in the way we make Marines, and I believe in the product, he says. In the end, it's about instilling core values. We get kids from all over the nation, and we try to fill them up with values, he says. It changes their lives. No, you break them. And if you're in the military and you're listening to me right now, dang stupid. I have friends. I was in ROTC. I wanted to go into the Air Force, but due to medical reasons, I couldn't. Yeah. They would tell me, they weren't supposed to tell me, but they told me what they had to go through. And it blew my mind how corrupt things are. And the fact that this supposedly young man jumped out the balcony by himself, but then they found ligature marks, a belt was around, and then he was complaining about his throat hurting. Yeah, that sounds like someone was trying to choke him, and maybe they damaged something in his throat and it was hurting really bad and he needed to go to medical. And he was and if he did end up actually doing it, he was probably just done and they weren't helping him and he didn't know what else to do. But that's like going from 0 to 100. That blows my mind. And the fact that they stuffed him in a dryer, oh my God, I feel so bad. People go through, they brainwash them and they break them so they can rebuild them how they want to. Make them into the soldier they want them to be. I support our troops. I support our military. Maybe really not our government right now, but our military. And it's just sad that there are corrupt things and corrupt people in the military that hurt other people. But that's all of these today. That was about 16 people. I think we got up to 2016, so I think I'm going to start in 2015 and then to 2010. The next video. My next video will be in the middle of February. I'll be posting it, and it's gonna be about the death of someone. Kind of have an idea. I can't think of it right now, anyways. But it won't be a hazing one. It'll be a different true crime. All right. Well, I love y'all. Please send out your positive love and thoughts and prayers to these families that lost these beautiful young men and women to just hassaddery. That's what I call it. Fuck tartary. Fuck just stupid. No reason for them to die. It was. But I will see y'all on the next one. I love y'all so much. Please like and subscribe, and please stay safe.
If I would've known that you wouldn't be here anymore, I would've made the moments last a little longer. 'Cause now I'm alone, and you're just a memory in my mind. I would've given anything to say goodbye. If I would've known, if I would've known, oh, I remember how we would laugh all the time, but now you're not around, and I'm just trying to find something else to fill the empty spaces you left behind. But nothing ever seems to work. I've been thinking about the things you used to stop this world from spinning. Like Superman, you were the only one to find the strength in all that I was dealing with. This life like kryptonite.